Welcome to the BioAg podcast. I'm your host, David Geiger, here at the Jethro's Barbecue Studio. And I was out and about this week in the farm community, so I had a online conversation this week. I hope you enjoy. We're going to take a look at some seed treatment options that exist in the world of farming, specifically next generation, modernized new seed treatments. And to do so, we have with us Brandon Miners with us. Brandon, thank you so much for joining us on the BioAg podcast. You are with Midwestern BioAg. And just as the first question, what is Midwestern BioAg? Give me a description of what you guys do.
Awesome. Well, thank you first and foremost, David, for having me on. So Midwestern BioAg, we have actually been around for over 43 years here in the Midwest. We were founded under the principles of fertilizer innovation and soil health. So over the last 40 years, we have been responsible for a number of fertilizer innovations, from dry fertilizer to liquid fertilizer, with a focus on fertilizers that are non-harmful to soil biology, improve soil structure, promote soil health. So really soil biology, creating resilient farms or, resilient soils for farmers to improve profitability, in the long term. So
when you mentioned long-term and non-harmful processes, why did you guys decide to go in that direction?
Yeah. So, the story can't really be told without talking about our founder, Gary Zimmer. So Gary Zimmer, he's very well known in the ag space, actually worldwide. He's known as the father of biological agriculture. Now, that's not because of like a bug in a jug situation that we sell, biology. He's known for that because he has been responsible for the focus being on changing the soil environment so that biology can actually thrive. So number one, fix the soil environment. Number two, know how to feed biology in the soil. And with that, you're going to have soils that can manage water better, right? They have more air and water infiltration. You're going to have more resilient soils that can handle stresses better throughout the growing season, right? Plant health is going to improve. Ultimately, yields improve. And, with that, again, it's an impact that stays there for multiple years and throughout generations. So really building that soil health, that foundation of the farm, instead of, again, we have a lot of these, we have, let's say, compaction issues or high salinity issues and things like that, where there's not a lot of solutions in agriculture. So really, he wanted to create a company that brought solutions for these problems that could really, again, change the soil structure, which not a lot of products out there can truly impact the soil on that level. We can feed a plant with a good nutrition, fertilizers in general will provide nutrients that are available that can maybe feed that plant and make it healthy for a season, but they don't have an impact on the soil itself. So that's really the foundation that Gary created for Midwestern BioAg. And we're continuing to innovate with products as we go. And we'll discuss one of those innovations today that still fits within those values of Midwestern BioAg.
Absolutely. And I did want to touch on that. But before we get into that, I wanted to bring it even more locally, right? We have Midwestern BioAg. Obviously, that indicates you guys have some sort of focus in the Midwest. We're based in Iowa here. Tell me about the relationship of states and why it may be necessary to focus on how states can be different geologically or from a soil perspective.
So I would say one of the things that Midwestern BioAg has done that's been different than anybody really in the agricultural industry in general is that we have always been a custom-based fertility program company for growers. So we know that soil types change from farm to farm. You can have a farm in one spot and 10 miles down the road, that farm has completely different soil types. You maybe even a different weather pattern, correct? And so how that one farm should be treated from a fertility standpoint, a management practice standpoint is completely different than somewhere else. And so we've really built this foundation within our organization of being able to address different regions. So, again, we talk about the Midwest, but within the Midwest, we have, again, from Minnesota to Illinois is completely different. We were planting into cold, let's say, wet soils in Minnesota versus, and we might, have a value from, let's say, an infertile phosphorus pop up that we see a tremendous result or return from. But then you get down into Illinois and they're not necessarily planting in those same conditions. The soil type's not the same. And so, that same exact input may not have the same impact on that farm. And so we've really prided ourselves on making sure that what we bring to the table can impact growers in different regions, but that we're making these recommendations custom to their region, their soil type, their farm need, and so that it really truly brings an ROI, a positive impact to each individual grower throughout these different regions. And yes, our focus, David, has been here in the Midwest for 40 years. We really started focusing first and foremost on dairy farms, so we've obviously gotten into corn, soybean rotations, different crops like that. But now today we are actually rapidly growing into, the Western plains, the high plains, into more arid environments. And as we kind of talk moving forward, well, the technology we're going to talk about today has got a big impact in those regions also. So,
Brandon, bringing this together between what you were talking about of trying to have more sustainable versions of inputs, as well as having that focus on specific soil areas, Iowa has had a pretty big focus on a regenerative focus of making sure soil stays on the land, and there is a conservation minded approach when it comes to here. And I know other states are doing that as well, but I wanted to break that down. Is this level of focus necessary and helpful in your mind when you talk to both farmers and folks that may not be interested or may not know much about the farm?
yes. So, regarding the regenerative ag topic in general, so I do a lot of speaking at events kind of throughout the Midwest, and a lot of times it's focused on regenerative ag. Obviously, many people have their definitions of what regenerative ag means. At the end of the day, for us, we define it again. Regenerative ag is like, are we truly impacting the soil itself, building soil structure, making that soil more healthy, where it can handle heavy rains, it can handle drought situations, right? Like we're truly building humus levels in the soil. And so really for Midwestern BioAg, our focus, whether, especially let's say in Iowa where the level of, let's say, regenerative practices are increasing, there's two things that we focus on. Number one is the inputs that the farmer is using meets their needs from a regenerative side of it. So if there is an input that they may be using that has a negative effect on soil structure, negative effect on soil biology, we want to bring a solution to them that can, let's say, replace that with a product that does not do harm to soil biology, that actually truly, builds soil structure, builds soil health in that process. And then the other side is management practices. So we really, really pride ourselves on being able to educate the grower, advise on, proper tillage practices, whether that be in a no-till situation, a minimum tillage situation, a strip till situation, but understanding that each one may have a drawback, and how do we mitigate those drawbacks? How do we, manage that farm so that it's not just inputs, right? It's management plus inputs to achieve true regenerative.
With that in mind, let's move to this new innovation. You guys have introduced a new product, launched it. It's called HydraPrime. Tell me about that and what it does.
Yes. So HydraPrime is our new seed treatment. First and foremost, it was built on our biogel technology. So our biogel technology is something that is fairly new to Midwestern BioAg. It's been around about 4 years. We have developed multiple different versions of products off of this technology. And this technology, biogel, is really named because it's a biostimulant and a hydrogel. So you have a food source for biology. As I go back to our foundation, right? We want to create an environment that biology can thrive in, but also be able to feed that biology. So this provides a very strong, good food source for biology. At the same time, the gel portion is a hydrogel sense that it's going to manage water. So it's going to retain water throughout the growing season. If there's ample moisture there, it's going to help manage that water better for the plant. So the plant can basically take that water up when it needs it, can manage it better. So that technology that we've built an in-furrow product on, we've built a UAN side dress application product on, we now have taken into the seed treatment world. And this was really brought about because of farmer innovation. So love farmers because they're always thinking outside the box. They're always looking for something else that they can bring value to their farm. And we had some growers that were already using the biogel technology, and they said, and this might be a great, great tool as a seed treatment. So they did. They took one of our other products, actually applied it as part as a seed treatment. They called us up halfway through the season and said, "You guys got to get out here and see this." Right. So we went out and we're like, geez, like there is a massive impact on crop health here. Like, what's going on? So that really took us down the road of we better get serious because these farmers are asking for this. So again, we wanted to take all the right steps, right? So go through the process, make sure that we understand, the logistics behind seed treatment, the handling of it, that it can apply properly, that it can handle the abrasion testing, the lubricity testing, all the things that are necessary to bring this to a true product launch. But really, that's where it stemmed from. So,
Break down this seed treatment process. How exactly is this applied to the seed? How does it go about before it even gets to the farmer in this case?
sure. So, as a seed treatment, as HydraPrime as a seed treatment really is no different than most of the seed treatments in the industry. Really, what HydraPrime is it's a direct replacement as a polymer in a normal system. So, it can be a replacement for a typical polymer, or it could be an addition on top of that. But again, it would be applied, a certain ounce per 100 weight, just like any other kind of seed treatment product that is out there. It handles the same. There's no like challenges. There's no like plugging issues with it. So really, it's just a nice it's going to be an easy plug and play for anybody that's out there that's doing seed treatment. So if it's a local retailer, if it's a seed company that independent seed dealer that's got his own seed treatment equipment. So again, just really, it's a nice easy plug and play into anybody's current program.
Polymers. Let's continue following it down this rabbit tail for folks who may not be as familiar with the process. That's just something that's placed on the exterior of just as an example, corn or a soybean seed before it's planted.
Yeah. So in most seed treatment formulas, there is a polymer that is there, and it's mainly meant for adhesion. So you got your actives, you'll have a fungicide and an insecticide. You might have a biological that's part of that seed treatment formulation. There's so many in the industry today that have these different actives, right? And they're going to use a polymer of some sort to adhere that to this, to kind of, first adhere and then also help maybe with like lubricity, just so that it's flowing through the planter well, those kind of things. What's unique about ours is ours can be plugged in like it's a polymer, but it's bringing a completely different value than just adhesion. Okay. So where HydraPrime comes in is it brings in that hydrophobic piece to it, which means that it actively draws water into the seed, and it's very aggressive at drawing water into the seed. So that seed's in the ground. One of the typical issues that growers are going to have is uneven emergence because you have varying moisture levels throughout different soil types on a farm. The whole purpose of the HydraPrime is to be able to manage that water more consistently so that those seeds germinate at the same time and they emerge at the same time.
That is extremely interesting to think about when you talk about the drawing water into the seed aspect. The initial thought I have is, when you go out to the pool or you're in the water, you're in the tub too long and your skin gets a little wrinkly, your skin is absorbing actively water in a way.
Yeah.
And it can be, it depends on who you are. It can be faster or slower.
Yeah.
But seeds do the same thing. That's how they draw in and start that growing process. How does that work? How do you make it go in faster? Explain that.
Yeah. So our base biogel technology, we have a very unique organic acid that we use that really has never been introduced in agriculture before, that is extremely hydrophobic. So this is an organic acid that is actually a part of natural plant processes that, again, is actually part of root exudates. So I can kind of think about a root exudate and what that's like, that kind of slimy substance that's around the roots and it holds onto soil. It also draws moisture in. Root exudates hold moisture next to that root, right? And so we're taking that same type of organic acid technology and applying that in a situation where we're going to draw, and not just draw moisture, but hold moisture. That's the big part, right? So as with a seed treatment, we draw that moisture into the seed, in around that seed. And then all of a sudden now that water is actually held there in place and it keeps it from drying out, right? So it's going to keep it there for an extended period of time, creating kind of like a micro environment, right? Which is really unique. We almost want to trick the plant into thinking that it's in a better environment than what it actually is. So that's what really kind of sets the HydraPrime and that technology apart from anything else that's out there.
So, can you dive a little deeper? I think you mentioned it in one of your comments earlier, but why is it more or less important to have a seed that can absorb water in a more efficient or quicker way?
Yeah, I think most farmers that are listening to this, they understand that the most critical point of the growing season is at planting, right? And I think everybody understands that, you know, plant spacing, not having doubles and skips in the field are obviously important to, making sure we ensure, capitalizing on our best yield opportunity. But one thing that has been talked about a lot here, I think over the last 5 years in agriculture, and understood better, is that emergence and uneven emergence is actually probably more there's a more negative impact to the overall yield from that side of things. And so why is there uneven emergence, right? Well, every single farm, every single field has varying soil types that are going to have varying amounts of organic matter in the soil that's going to be able to hold water in different ways, right? So you're going to have a dry area of your field. You're going to have an area that holds too much moisture. At the end of the day, it's water, temperature, and biology that determines when that seed germinates, how fast it sets roots, and how fast it emerges out of the ground. So, every farm is impacted by this. So where HydraPrime comes in is to create that consistent water management across the board, right? So even if you have a low organic matter soil, but there's some moisture there, it's going to draw that moisture and create that microenvironment for that seed to germinate this at the same time or more consistently with an area of the field that might have a higher organic matter level and more moisture that's available at that spot. But that way we can get that even emergence coming out of the ground. So we, just to kind of go back a little bit, we do see a little bit earlier emergence, but what's more impactful is even emergence across the field because we have consistent moisture management across the board.
Brandon, just to bring all this together.
Yep.
New technology like this is something that is a huge part of how modern agriculture works today. Why is it important to continue this level of innovation to you specifically? And why is it important at a state level? And just as an example here in Iowa, why would it be important for us to continue to follow the science and look at innovations like this new technology?
Well, I'll tell you, at the end of the day, we have farmers probably take on more risk than anybody in this world. And that risk has some of the biggest impacts from a financial standpoint, especially a financial standpoint, especially in our markets today, than probably any other industry that's out here. So for farmers, what really it boils down to is they need to be concerned about what can they do to manage risk on their farm to ensure that they're continuing to have consistent profitability. I'm gonna take a step off to the side for a second. We talk about sustainability and regenerative ag. I've been very much a critic of sustainable ag for a long time, even though my master's is in sustainable food systems. Okay. But the problem is that so much gets talked about the environment side of things, but very little gets talked about economical sustainability, right? And we see that that's a massive challenge. You can't be sustainable unless you're profitable. Okay, so these innovations that are coming out, such as HydraPrime, or we have our carbon-based dry fertilizer. There's a lot of innovations from a lot of other good companies that are out here. At the end of the day, it's to help the growers, the farmers out here manage risks to ensure that they get consistent crops, consistent yield year after year, despite the uncontrollables, right? We saw it this year, right? The weather this year that we had set it up for a massive amount of disease pressure throughout the Midwest, right? And that had some massively negative impacts on these growers. So what kind of innovations can we come up with, for growers, or not just our company, but our companies, that are out here that can, again, help these guys to manage that level of risk that is the unknowns that are coming, at them year after year after year.
Brandon Miners is joining us with Midwestern BioAg, talking about sustainability, HydraPrime, their new innovative product, and also the many parts of agriculture, how it affects both, as you mentioned, economically and from an environmental standpoint.
Right.
Brandon, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, David.
By the way, if you did have a chance to talk about your product there, could you give us a place to go to? Folks wanted to learn more about it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, right? The timing is kind of good here, but I would say go check out our social medias on Facebook or we're on Twitter, Instagram, because we just released the HydraPrime video that shows the technology in real time, and it is extremely, extremely impactful to see. So I would highly encourage you to go check that out first, and then obviously give us a call or come to our website and hit us up on our contact page. We're just extremely excited about this. Like, we think this is going to be, again, one of those technologies that in a way is groundbreaking to agriculture. So very excited.
Brandon Miners, thank you so much again for joining us on the BioAg podcast.
Appreciate it, David. Thank you for having me.
Thanks again for joining me here on the Iowa Ag Podcast. Again, I'm your host, David Geiger, here at the Jethro's Barbecue Studio, and I hope you enjoyed the conversation, and you can find more information on some of the work I do at my social media, at Geiger Reports. You can find that on X as well as some other locations, so please enjoy that, and until next week, I'll see you then.